So there's this idea that it's impossible to make an anti-war movie. Now what that means is that the reality of war is chaos, boredom, ugliness, it's gross, it's confusing. That doesn't make for a good movie. Now when you look at what a movie is supposed to be, a movie is supposed to make sense, have a storyline, have resolution, has beautiful actors and actresses, it has skilled choreography and battle sequences. So just the very nature of the medium of film goes against the reality of war. So even if you set out to make an anti-war movie, you're gonna in some ways inevitably make war look better than it really is. Now Bojack, finally we're at the end of this show. 6 seasons. If you haven't seen it, easiest way to describe the central idea is it's all about this character, half man, half horse, and he's a bad character. He's very selfish, very narcissistic, self-absorbed, he's self-loathing, just not a very good character. Now, you may think the most interesting question going into the final season is Bojack gonna change? Is he gonna show that he's capable of change, that these flaws, yeah, they're still around, but in some way we're at least on the path of him getting better and becoming a better person? I don't think that that's the most interesting question. I think the most interesting question is, can Bojack make us change? Now I want to talk about a book. I know books aren't fun, but you've probably read this one or at least heard of it, Catcher in the Rye. Very, very famous book. J.D. Salinger, who actually was on Bojack, he's the author. He writes this book about Holden Caulfield, and most people read it and they see an intelligent, sensitive kid who sees how unfair and cruel the world is, and it's just such a tragedy because Holden's just so nice and sensitive and he's just, you know, buffeted about by this cruel world. Not the message of the book at all. The message of the book is the complete opposite. It's a critique, a scathing critique of Holden Caulfield as someone who is insecure, terrified of allowing others in and being hurt, so he preemptively rejects the world and says the world sucks anyways, I want nothing to do with it, rather than just admitting he's kind of scared and kind of afraid and kind of a coward. Most people read this, did not get the idea. The book blew up, became a huge success. J.D. Salinger was like, all right, back to the drawing board, did another book. Same idea he wanted to convey, called Franny and Zoe. This time, there was no symbolism, no metaphors. He just had a character, Zoe, who was basically the same as Holden. This other character, Franny, just yell at Zoe for 90% of the book, telling her everything that was wrong with her, that, you know, she's just narcissistic and thinks she's special and entitled and all this, you know, oh, I'm so sensitive and the world's so cruel, is really just this mask for her own negative qualities. This book didn't sell at all. The people that did read it just really focus on the 10% of the book that's Zoe being, oh, the world's so cruel. And Salinger basically gave up, and he basically said this idea that I want to communicate, I can't communicate it through this medium. I want to critique, you know, overeducated people who are stuck in their own heads. So how can I, through a book which is all about isolating yourself from other people and getting hung up on abstractions and big words, I can't communicate the idea I want. So Salinger basically gave up and said, you know, I can't do it. What about film? What about visual art? What about movies? Now, the two best examples of trying to, you know, critique a character and build your whole show around a flawed character, Breaking Bad as a TV show, and then The Godfather Part 2. I think both of these shows, they do an okay job as a critique, but they run into these just fundamental problems. Now, the first is that being selfish in real life isn't glamorous and it isn't beautiful. It's just kind of ugly and kind of sad, and you live a kind of sad, quiet life of unfulfilled potential. But when you look at something like The Godfather Part 2, mild spoiler, but the movie ends with a character alone, and there's this very beautiful sequence where it flashes back in time to where he's with his family and he's still kind of alone and isolated, and then it flashes forward to the end of the movie and he's alone, and there's this idea that he's just, you know, destined to be alone. And yeah, you feel sad for, and it's a cautionary tale, but there's also great beauty in the shot. In your own life, if you follow that same path of pushing others away and being selfish, you don't get this beautiful movie made about you, and you don't get to revel in the artsy cinematography of being alone. It's just kind of sad and just kind of ugly. So I think that movies, again, you never want to make a boring, crappy movie. You want to make a beautiful movie. So when you make a beautiful movie and you build it around an ugly trait, there is just a bit of a problem with, you're inevitably going to glamorize it. The other thing is, even when you have a character like Walter White and you want to critique that character and show some flaws. When you build a whole show largely around him, and yes, they flash to other characters, but when you build a whole TV series around him, it feeds into this idea that you're the most important person and you're special and other people aren't as important. So if you struggle with that and you struggle to see yourself as just one of many other people in the world, and you struggle to really consider other people, and really everything is just kind of funneled through yourself, when you consume these movies or TV shows where there's this one central dominant frame and everything kind of happens in relation to this one central protagonist, this one hero, I think it's inevitably gonna not have the best impact. And that's why I think that Bojack, and again, maybe it's an unfair standard to hold, like maybe shows don't have to, of course shows don't have to, you know, make you better by watching them, but I just think it's interesting that, I don't know what I want to say. I'm gonna bail out there. I'm coming back from a long break. I don't want to strain myself too much, so I'll just take it slow, ease back into it. I want to start doing regular videos. I'm gonna do a few more Bojack videos. The season finale is on Friday. I'm gonna try to do a few more videos, flesh out some more of these ideas, because it's a great show and I really love the show. But I just think it's interesting to kind of question, and I love comments like, do you think you watching it, or if you haven't watched it, has there ever been a show where you've watched it and you've said, you know what, I see that character, I don't really like those traits, I'm gonna try to do better? And then did you actually, after watching it, kind of do better? Because I think it's very tough, but it'd be beautiful if someone could crack the code on how do you take a bad trait, show it in film, and then have people kind of watch that, recognize it, and hate it so much they want to change. But it's a tricky one. I can't really think of a lot of shows myself, because again, I watch Breaking Bad, I watch The Godfather, but you have very mixed feelings watching it. You're like, yeah, I know this isn't great what this character is doing, but it's also it's very, very compelling as well. So kind of torn. Gonna stop there. Don't wanna say too much, but regular videos, more videos about Bojack definitely coming.